The kitchen was quiet except for the soft hum of the dishwasher when Emma stormed in, waving an envelope like a victory flag. Her eyes gleamed with a cruel satisfaction I'd never seen in my 17-year-old daughter before. "Look what I got," she said, her voice dripping with contempt. She slapped the envelope onto the counter between us. "DNA results. Want to explain why Dad isn't showing up as my biological father?" My hands stilled over the sink where I'd been washing dishes. I carefully dried them on a kitchen towel, buying myself precious seconds to steady my racing heart. I'd known this day might come, but I hadn't expected it like this, hadn't expected the look of smug triumph on my daughter's face. "How long have you been lying to us?" Emma demanded, crossing her arms. "Does Dad even know, or have you been playing him for a fool all these years too?" I took a deep breath, studying her face, the face that looked so much like mine at her age, yet held none of the warmth or understanding I desperately needed from her right now. "Sit down, Emma," I said quietly. "This isn't a conversation we should have standing up." She scoffed but dropped into one of the kitchen chairs, still radiating righteous anger. "Fine. Explain how you've been living a lie for the past 17 years. This should be good. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and my daughter had just unknowingly opened a door to the past I'd spent nearly 2 decades trying to keep firmly shut. Not because I was ashamed, but because some truths are too heavy for children to bear. Some stories need to wait until the right moment, and this wasn't it. But Emma had forced my hand. I sat down across from her, folding my hands on the table. "First, I need you to understand something. Everything I've done, every choice I've made, has been to protect you and give you the best life possible." Emma rolled her eyes. Save the mom speech. "I want the truth." "The truth," I said carefully, "is complicated. And before we go any further, I need to know exactly what you're hoping to accomplish here. Are you looking for answers, or are you just trying to hurt me?" She faltered for a moment, her confidence wavering. "I deserve to know who my real father is," she said finally, but her voice had lost some of its edge. I nodded slowly. "Yes, you do. But not like this. Not as a weapon you can use to try to tear this family apart." "Family?" She laughed bitterly. "What family? It's all built on lies." "No," I said firmly. "It's built on love. Your father, the man who raised you, who has loved you every single day of your life. He knows you're not biologically his. He's always known." Emma's eyes widened, her carefully constructed narrative beginning to crack. "What? David and I met when I was already pregnant with you," I explained, watching her face carefully. "I was 22, scared, and alone. He didn't have to stay. He didn't have to love us. But he chose to, every single day." "But," Emma's voice trembled. "But why didn't you tell me?" I reached across the table, grateful when she didn't pull away from my touch. "Because some stories need time. Because you needed to be old enough to understand that family isn't just about DNA. It's about choice. It's about love." "Then who is my biological father?" she asked, her voice smaller now. I closed my eyes briefly, memories washing over me. His name was Michael. And that story, that's the part I've been trying to protect you from. "I want to know," Emma insisted, but the smugness was gone, replaced by something more vulnerable. "I need to know." I took another deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation I'd hoped to have years from now, when she was older, when she could better understand the complexities of love and loss and the choices we make when we're young. "I met Michael when I was in college." I began, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. "He was charming, ambitious, and I thought I was in love. We dated for nearly a year before I got pregnant." Emma leaned forward, hanging on every word. "What happened?" "When I told him about the pregnancy, I paused, choosing my words carefully. "He made it clear he wasn't ready for that responsibility. He had plans. Law school, a career, a future that didn't include a baby. He told me to take care of it, and when I refused, he disappeared." "Just like that?" Emma whispered. I nodded. "Just like that. I tried to contact him a few times, but he blocked my number, changed his email. His parents, your biological grandparents, they told me to stay away, offered me money to keep quiet about the whole thing." "Did you take it?" Emma asked, her eyes wide. "No," I said firmly. "I didn't want their money. I wanted to give you a life filled with love, not secrets and shame. I dropped out of college, moved back home with my parents, and started working 2 jobs to prepare for your arrival." I watched as Emma processed this information, her earlier bravado completely gone. But then how did you meet Dad? I mean, David? A small smile crossed my face at the memory. I was working at a coffee shop, 7 months pregnant and exhausted. David was a regular customer, always kind, always left a good tip. One day, I was so tired I nearly fainted while taking his order. He helped me sit down, brought me water, and stayed with me until my shift ended. And he didn't care that you were pregnant with someone else's baby. He said it was like getting two miracles for the price of one. I replied, feeling tears prick at my eyes. He started coming by more often, always checking on me, bringing me healthy snacks because he'd read somewhere that pregnant women needed extra nutrients. Emma's lip trembled. He really chose us. He did. I confirmed. We got married when you were 6 months old. He insisted on legally adopting you, said he wanted the world to know you were his daughter in every way that mattered. That's why his name is on your birth certificate, because he chose to be your father. The kitchen fell silent as Emma absorbed this information. I could see the conflict on her face, the way her earlier certainty had crumbled in the face of a truth far more complex than she'd imagined. I'm sorry, she finally whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. I thought I was exposing some terrible secret. I wanted to hurt you because I've been so angry lately, and I didn't even know why. I moved around the table to pull her into my arms, feeling her body shake with sobs. You're 17, sweetheart. Being angry is part of growing up. But next time, talk to me. Ask me. Don't try to weaponize our history. She nodded against my shoulder. Is he going to be mad about the DNA test? No, I said softly, stroking her hair. He's always known this day would come eventually. We both did. We just hoped you'd come to us first, that we could tell you the story together, when you were ready to hear it. I want to hear it, Emma said, pulling back to wipe her eyes. All of it, and I want Dad here too. I smiled, reaching for my phone. I'll call him, but Emma? She looked up at me. Remember this feeling. Remember how different the truth was from what you imagined. Sometimes the stories we tell ourselves about other people's choices, they're not nearly as simple as we think. As I dialed David's number, I watched Emma sink back into her chair, the DNA results forgotten on the counter. She looked younger suddenly, more vulnerable, like the little girl who used to crawl into our bed during thunderstorms. David answered on the second ring. Hey, love. Everything okay? Emma took a DNA test, I said simply. It's time for that conversation we've been preparing for. There was a pause, then his warm, steady voice came through the line. I'll be home in 20 minutes. We'll do this together, like we've done everything else. I hung up and looked at Emma, who was watching me with red-rimmed eyes. He's on his way, I told her. Are you ready to hear the whole story? She nodded, and I could see the change in her. The way her earlier defiance had transformed into something softer, more open. Yeah, she said quietly. I think I am. David arrived exactly 20 minutes later, his footsteps echoing through the house as he entered. I watched Emma tense slightly at the sound, her earlier confidence completely dissolved. When he appeared in the kitchen doorway, still in his work clothes, his eyes immediately found Emma. Hey, sweetheart, he said softly, setting his briefcase down. Your mom filled me in. Emma's lip trembled. Dad, But before she could finish, David crossed the room and pulled her into a tight hug. It's okay, he murmured into her hair. We've been waiting for this day. I just wish you felt you could come to us first. I watched them embrace, my heart swelling with love for this man who had chosen us, who had never once made Emma feel like she was anything less than his whole world. When they finally pulled apart, David kept one arm around Emma's shoulders as he sat down beside her. So, he said, looking between us. Where should we start? Mom told me about meeting you, Emma said quietly, about how you chose us. David smiled, his eyes meeting mine across the table. Best decision I ever made. But there's more to the story, isn't there, Sarah? I nodded, knowing we had to tell her everything now. No more protecting her from the harder truths. Yes, Emma needs to know about what happened after, about Michael's attempts to come back. Emma's head snapped up. What? He tried to come back? When? I took a deep breath, feeling David's steady presence giving me strength. When you were 5 years old, Michael showed up at our door. He'd seen a photo of you at his parents' house. They'd been keeping tabs on us through mutual friends. Though I didn't know it at the time. What did he want? Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He said he'd made a mistake. I continued, the memory still sharp after all these years. He'd finished law school, started a successful career, gotten married. But something was missing. He said he couldn't stop thinking about the daughter he'd abandoned. David's jaw tightened slightly, but his voice remained calm. Tell her what you told him, Sarah. I reached across the table to take Emma's hand. I told him he'd lost the right to be your father the day he walked away. That being a parent isn't something you can decide to do only when it's convenient. Your dad, David, he'd been there for every moment, every skinned knee, every nightmare, every triumph. He was your father in every way that mattered. Did Michael fight you on it? Emma asked. He threatened to take us to court, David answered, his voice steady. Said he had resources now, could prove he was the biological father and demand partial custody. Emma's eyes widened. What did you do? We fought back, I said simply. We had years of documented abandonment, proof that he'd rejected any responsibility when I was pregnant. Plus, David had legally adopted you. The law was on our side. But more importantly, David added, squeezing Emma's shoulder, you were old enough to be affected by any custody battle. We weren't going to put you through that trauma just because Michael suddenly decided he was ready to play dad. He backed off eventually, I continued. I think he realized that pursuing it would only hurt everyone involved, especially you. But he did make one request. What was it? Emma asked. He asked that when you were old enough to understand, we tell you the truth. Tell you that he regretted his choices, that he'd grown up and realized what he'd thrown away. I paused, studying my daughter's face. We agreed, but on our terms, when we felt you were ready. Emma was quiet for a moment, processing everything. Do you know where he is now? David and I exchanged a look. Yes, I said carefully. He's still in the area, actually. He has his own law firm downtown. 2 other children with his wife. My half-siblings, Emma whispered, testing the words. Biologically, yes, David said gently. But Emma, you need to understand something. Just because you share DNA with someone doesn't mean they have a right to be in your life. That's your choice to make, when and if you're ready. Emma looked up at him, tears in her eyes. But you'll always be my real dad, right? No matter what. David pulled her close again, his own eyes glistening. Always, sweetheart. Nothing could ever change that. I watched them together, remembering all the moments that had led us here. The day David had first held Emma, his eyes full of wonder. Her first steps, taken toward him with complete trust. The father-daughter dances, the bedtime stories, the countless small moments that had built their unshakable bond. I feel so stupid, Emma said finally, wiping her eyes. I thought I was going to expose this huge scandal, but instead you learned that family is more complicated and beautiful than just biology. I finished for her. That love is a choice we make every day. The DNA test, David added, it doesn't change who we are. It doesn't erase our history or diminish our love for you. If anything, it just confirms what I've always known, that choosing to be your father was the greatest gift of my life. Emma reached for the envelope still sitting on the counter, picking it up with trembling fingers. Can we throw this away? I don't need it anymore. I smiled, feeling tears prick at my eyes. Of course, sweetheart. We watched as she tore the envelope in half, then quarters, letting the pieces fall into the trash. As she did, I saw something shift in her expression, a kind of peace settling over her features. Mom, she said softly. Dad, I'm sorry. For trying to hurt you, for not trusting you enough to just ask. We understand, I assured her. Growing up means questioning things, trying to figure out who you are. But next time you have questions about your past, come to us first. We've never wanted to hide anything from you, we just wanted to protect you until you were ready for the whole truth. David nodded in agreement. And now that everything's out in the open, we can talk about what you want to do next. If you have questions about Michael, about your biological heritage, we'll help you find those answers when you're ready. Emma shook her head. I don't think I want to know right now. Maybe someday, but she looked between us, her expression softening. Right now, I just want to be here, with my real family. The three of us sat there in the kitchen as the evening light filtered through the windows, our family stronger for having weathered this storm together. Emma's DNA test, meant to be a weapon, had instead become a bridge to understanding, a reminder that the bonds that matter most aren't the ones we're born with, but the ones we choose to nurture and protect. Later that night, after Emma had gone to bed, David and I sat on the back porch, his arm around my shoulders as we looked up at the stars. "You okay?" he asked softly. I nodded, leaning into his warmth. "Better than okay. I think this needed to happen. Maybe not exactly the way it did, but Emma needed to know the truth. She's stronger than we give her credit for," David mused. "Just like her mother." I turned to look at him, this man who had stepped into our lives and chosen to make us his family. "Thank you," I whispered. "For everything. For loving us both so completely." He smiled, pulling me closer. "Thank you for letting me, for trusting me with your heart and with Emma's." Inside, we could hear Emma moving around in her room, probably getting ready for bed. The sound was so familiar, so precious, a reminder of all the ordinary moments that made up our extraordinary love story. "Do you think she'll want to meet him someday?" I asked quietly. "Michael?" David was quiet for a moment, considering. "Maybe, and if she does, we'll support her. But I think today showed her something important, that the truth isn't always what we expect it to be, and sometimes the family we choose is stronger than the family we're born into." I nodded, feeling a deep sense of peace settle over me. The secret I'd carried for so long wasn't a secret anymore. And somehow, that made everything clear. Our family wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was built on choice, on love, on the daily decision to be there for each other. Emma's DNA test, meant to break us apart, had only brought us closer together. It had shown her, and reminded us, that family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who stay, who choose to love us through every storm, who build a life with us one moment at a time. As David and I sat there under the stars, I thought about all the paths that had led us here. Every choice, every struggle, every moment of doubt and faith. And I knew with absolute certainty that we had created something beautiful, a family bound not by DNA, but by something far stronger. The power of unconditional love.
The hospital cafeteria buzzed with evening activity as I reviewed surgical schedules. My white coat crisp despite 16 hours of rounds. My phone lit up with Mom's text, "Family dinner tonight. Your sister's celebrating her nursing promotion." I smiled, checking the hospital board's latest message. "Congratulations on your unanimous selection as chief of surgery. Announcement scheduled for tonight's board meeting." 7 years of being the failure of the family was about to end. 7 years of hearing how my sister Lisa was the sensible one for choosing nursing while I wasted time trying to become a surgeon. "Dr. Chin," a resident approached, "your family's in the main conference room. They said it's a surprise dinner." Perfect timing. They had no idea they'd walked into my moment. The conference room doors opened to reveal my family seated around the mahogany table, Lisa beaming in her head nurse uniform while Mom and Dad arranged takeout containers. "Sarah," Lisa called out, "finally joining us? Or are you still too busy with those impossible surgical rotations?" "Actually," I began, but Mom cut in. "We're celebrating Lisa's promotion to head of nursing," she announced. "A real achievement, unlike." She glanced at my surgeon's coat with familiar disappointment. "Speaking of achievements," Dad added, "Dr. Roberts mentioned there's an opening in the family practice department. Much more suitable than surgery." I checked my watch. 3 minutes until the board meeting. "Sarah never could handle pressure," Lisa told her fiancé, another nurse. "Remember when Mom told everyone she'd never finish med school? And now, struggling through residency." My phone buzzed, "Board assembled. Waiting for your entrance, Chief." Struggling. I removed my glasses slowly, enjoying the moment. "Is that what you think I've been doing?" The conference room door opened. Chairman Wilson strode in, folders in hand. "Chief, your family's medical requests need your signature. And the board's waiting for your first address." Mom's fork clattered against fine china. "Chief. Dr. Sarah Chin," Chairman Wilson announced proudly, "youngest chief of surgery in our hospital's history." The board's vote was unanimous. Lisa's smug smile froze. "That's impossible. She's just a resident." "Was a resident," I corrected, standing to my full height. While you were telling everyone I'd fail, I was performing groundbreaking procedures. When Mom was announcing my inevitable dropout, I was publishing research that changed neurosurgical protocols. But we thought. Dad stammered. You thought what you wanted to think, I replied, signing the papers Chairman Wilson offered. Too busy planning Lisa's nursing celebrations to notice my surgical innovations. My phone lit up with notifications as the announcement went live. Dr. Sarah Chin appointed Chief of Surgery. Youngest surgeon to lead major hospital department. Revolutionary brain surgery technique gains worldwide adoption. By the way, I added, reviewing the medical requests, Lisa, you're transferred to the surgical department? Denied. Your performance reviews show a concerning pattern of undermining surgical residents. As chief, I can't allow that behavior. Mom found her voice. Sarah, surely you wouldn't. Wouldn't what? Maintain professional standards? Evaluate staff based on merit instead of family ties. I gathered the signed papers. The same way you evaluated my chances of success. Chairman Wilson cleared his throat. The board's waiting, Chief Chin. Of course, I smiled. Oh, and Lisa? That parking spot you wanted reserved for department heads? It's now assigned to our most promising surgical resident. Someone who reminds me of myself 7 years ago when you all said I'd never make it. As I walked out, I heard Mom's whispered, but she was supposed to fail. The hallway screens displayed the evening's surgical schedule. My name listed as primary surgeon on 3 groundbreaking procedures. Procedures that had made our hospital a global leader in neurosurgery. Dr. Chin, my senior resident, called out, "The press is requesting quotes about your new brain mapping technique." Lisa's face went pale. Press? For Sarah. The technique that reduced recovery time by 70%? I pulled up the research data. The one Mom called impossible when I missed Thanksgiving dinner to work on it? The conference room's display switched to breaking medical news. Dr. Sarah Chen's revolutionary surgery protocol adopted worldwide. But you never said anything, Dad protested. All those family dinners. All those dinners where you talked over my achievements? I brought up more screens. While you were celebrating Lisa's basic certifications, I was pioneering surgical procedures. When you were mocking my endless studying, I was developing techniques that saved hundreds of lives. Chairman Wilson handed me another document. Your new department budget, Chief. The board approved the full amount. Mom's hands shook as she saw the numbers. More funding than the entire nursing division's annual budget. That's not fair. Lisa burst out. I've been here longer. Length doesn't equal innovation, I cut in. How many papers have you published, Lisa? How many lives have your techniques saved? The screens now showed my surgical statistics. Success rates that had made me a legend in the medical community while my family was still calling me a struggling resident. By the way, I added, reviewing the staff roster, that nursing student you've been mentoring? The one you said wasn't cut out for medical school? I just approved her surgical residency application. Unlike some, I recognize potential even when it doesn't look like family expectations. My phone buzzed with more updates. International Medical Association requests keynote speech. Harvard Medical School offers visiting professor position. Surgical technique patent approved. The board meeting starts in 2 minutes, Chairman Wilson reminded me. They're eager to hear your vision for the department. Of course, I gathered my papers. Lisa, you'll want to update your resume. The new performance standards I'm implementing might be challenging for someone with your evaluation history. As I headed for the door, Dad called out, "Wait, your mother and we just wanted what was best." No, I turned back. You wanted what was easiest to understand. A nurse for a daughter fitted your worldview. A revolutionary surgeon? That required believing in possibilities you couldn't see. The hallway erupted in respectful "Good evening, Chief" greetings as I walked past, each one a subtle reminder of how wrong my family had been. The morning after my appointment, I sat in the Chief of Surgery's office. My office, reviewing department files while the medical world buzzed with news of my promotion. Every medical journal and hospital newsletter featured my story. Youngest Chief of Surgery revolutionizes brain surgery. Dr. Chen's technique reduces recovery time by 70%. Medical prodigy takes helm at Premier Hospital. My phone hadn't stopped lighting up since the announcement. 38 missed calls from Mom. 25 from Lisa. Countless messages from relatives who'd suddenly remembered my existence. Dr. Martinez, my trusted deputy chief, entered with the morning briefing. Your sister's been in the surgical wing since 6 a.m. Says it's her right to observe procedures as head nurse. Interesting how rights matter when hierarchy shifts, I mused, signing off on the day's surgical schedule. How's her performance review looking? 3 complaints from surgical residents last month alone. All documented cases of undermining their authority. The security feed showed Lisa pacing the surgical floor, her pristine nursing uniform a stark contrast to her frazzled expression. Her usual confidence was cracking, hair escaping its perfect bun, makeup showing signs of a sleepless night. Dr. Chin, my assistant's voice crackled, your parents are insisting on a meeting. They've brought your grandfather, the retired surgeon. Perfect. Grandfather had been the only one who believed in me before he retired. He'd love seeing what his struggling granddaughter had achieved. Mom burst in first, clutching her designer handbag like armor. Dad followed, looking lost without his usual patronizing smile. Grandfather entered last, his eyes twinkling with what looked suspiciously like pride. Sarah. Mom started, using my full name like I was still a med student. This is unnecessary. We can discuss this as a family. Family. I turned my screens to show the surgical department's statistics. Like when you told the entire family I'd never handle medical school. Or when Lisa spread rumors about my shaky hands during residency. Those were concerns about your well-being, Dad protested weakly. Really? I pulled up video recordings of my latest surgeries. Watch these procedures. See any shaking? Any hesitation? While you were planning Lisa's nursing celebrations, I was developing techniques that made our hospital world-renowned. Lisa burst in, having finally gained access to the executive floor. You can't just change everything overnight. Actually, I displayed the department's new organizational chart. I can. And I have. Merit-based promotions only. No more favoritism for nurses who happen to be related to staff. But my position. Lisa's voice trailed off as she saw her new assignment. You're being transferred to general medicine, I confirmed. Away from surgical residents you've been undermining. Your choice whether to accept the position or explore opportunities elsewhere. Grandfather stepped forward, his weathered surgeon's hands clasped behind his back. Show them, Sarah. Show them what I saw in you all those years ago. I smiled, pulling up my research database. The screens filled with publications, patents, and procedures, years of work they dismissed as wasteful studying. Every time you mocked my dedication, I explained, I was building this. While you were telling me to be realistic like Lisa, I was revolutionizing neurosurgery. My phone lit up with another alert. Dr. Chen's surgical technique saves congressman's daughter. National media coverage pending. Your next surgery is in an hour, Dr. Martinez reminded me. The one they said was impossible? The one that already has a waiting list of international patients, I corrected. Speaking of which, Lisa, you're not approved for that observation gallery anymore. Security has been updated. But I'm head nurse, she protested. We're head nurse, I emphasized. The new surgical department has higher standards. Standards you established when you called my career impossible. 1 month into my role as chief, I stood in operating room 1, preparing for another groundbreaking procedure while medical students observed from the gallery. The hospital's reputation had soared, with my surgical techniques now being taught in medical schools worldwide. My phone buzzed with the morning updates. Surgical success rates up 85% under new leadership. Dr. Chen's protocol becomes global standard. Lisa Carter, 10th transfer request denied. Parents, 4th attempt to influence board decisions. Dr. Martinez entered the prep room. Your sister's trying to get into today's surgery observation. Says it's her educational right as a nurse. Interesting, I replied, washing up for surgery. Did she mention how she used to tell residents I'd never make it to this or accept as a cleanup crew? The observation gallery was packed with eager medical students. The next generation of surgeons who would learn that success doesn't depend on family approval. Dr. Chin, my assistant's voice came through. Your mother's here with the hospital board chairman's wife. They're trying to leverage social connections. Some people never learn, I mused, watching the gallery fill. Let them watch today's surgery. They should see what their failing daughter can do. Mom and her society friends sat front row, their designer outfits out of place among earnest medical students. Lisa hovered by the door, her nurse's uniform no longer carrying the authority it once did. Today's procedure, I announced to the gallery, demonstrates the technique they said was impossible when I proposed it in medical school. The one my family suggested I simplify to match their expectations. The screens displayed my innovation in real-time microsurgery that would have seemed like science fiction when they were mocking my ambitions. Pay attention, I continued, making the first precise incision, to the neural mapping approach that won last month's Global Medical Innovation Award. The same approach my sister called unrealistic during family dinners. Through my surgical microscope, I could see Mom's friend whispering, probably realizing her husband, the board chairman, now answered to the doctor they'd underestimated. 4 hours later, another successful surgery completed. I stood washing up as the gallery emptied. The medical students' excited chatter about my technique echoed through the halls. Sarah, Mom approached, her social confidence wavering. We never knew. Because you never looked, I replied, checking post-op notes. Too busy planning Lisa's nursing ceremonies to notice I was changing modern surgery. Lisa stepped forward, her transfer request clutched in her hand. I could learn your technique, if you just give me a chance. Like the chances you gave struggling residents? I reviewed her file on my tablet. The ones you told would never be real doctors like my sister? My phone lit up with breaking news. Dr. Chen's technique saves quadriplegic patient, full recovery expected. The thing about surgery, I continued, removing my mask, is that it doesn't care about family names or social connections. It only cares about skill, innovation, and dedication, everything you said I lacked. But we're family, Mom pleaded. Are we? I pulled up the hospital's new teaching program. Because family supports potential. Family nurtures ambition. What you did was the opposite. The screens above the surgical bay showed the day's success. Another impossible procedure made routine by the doctor they said would never succeed. Here's what happens now, I stated, signing off on the surgery notes. Lisa, you can reapply for surgical observation rights, starting with basic certification, no shortcuts. Mom, your social influence ends at the hospital doors. Medicine doesn't care about country club memberships. As they left, finally understanding the power shift, I called after them. Oh, and that family dinner tradition? I'll be busy those nights, teaching future surgeons who remind me of myself. The ones other people say will never make it. The next morning, I reviewed applications for our surgical residency program. Among them, I found a familiar story, a brilliant student whose family insisted nursing was a safer choice. My phone buzzed, Lisa requesting entry to afternoon surgical conference. Denied, I texted back. Prerequisites required, no exceptions. The hospital corridors echoed with the energy of changing dynamics. Nurses who once followed Lisa's lead now reported directly to my surgical team. Residents who'd feared her interference now flourished under merit-based evaluations. Dr. Chen, a young medical student, approached, her eyes bright with determination. My parents say neurosurgery is too ambitious for me. I smiled, recognizing my past self in her nervous posture. Come with me. Leading her to the surgical gallery, I pulled up recordings of my latest procedures. See that technique? Every person in my family said it was impossible. Now it's saving lives worldwide. But how did you handle their doubt? By proving that doubt is just fear of change, I replied, handing her an application for our advanced program. Sometimes the greatest barrier isn't the surgery itself. It's the people who think they know your limits. My phone lit up again. Mom had posted on social media, finally bragging about her brilliant surgeon daughter. 7 years too late. Success, I told the student, isn't measured in family approval. It's measured in lives changed, boundaries pushed, and barriers broken. Remember that when they tell you to be realistic. As she left, clutching the application like a lifeline, I watched another impossible surgery begin in the OR below. Another life about to be saved by techniques they said would never work. I adjusted my microscope in the dimly lit university lab, reviewing the results that would soon shake the scientific world. 3 years of being dismissed as a failed researcher, while I quietly revolutionized quantum biology. Dr. Sarah Chin? My research assistant Tom appeared with coffee. Your mother's calling again. About the family party tonight. I glanced at my laptop screen showing the confidential email from the Nobel Committee. If only they knew. Did she mention if Marie's coming? I asked, referring to my older sister, the successful scientist, with her prestigious hospital position. Yes. Apparently, she has big news about her latest research grant. Of course she did. Marie never missed a chance to showcase her conventional achievements at family gatherings. The party was at my parents' house, a gathering where Mom could simultaneously display her daughters and critique their life choices. I arrived late, still wearing my lab coat over jeans. Sarah, darling, Mom sighed, couldn't you change? Your sister just received $1 million grant. Marie stood holding court in designer clothes, surrounded by admiring relatives. It's fine, Mom. Not everyone can handle high-profile research. If they only knew about the email sitting in my inbox, news that would make Marie's grant look like pocket change. How's the university work? Dad asked between conversations with Marie's colleagues. Progressive, I said simply. She's still doing basic lab work, Marie informed them, while I'm leading clinical trials at Memorial Hospital. Mom patted my hand. Honey, maybe it's time to consider a more prominent position. Something more suitable. My phone buzzed, a message from the journal Nature. Breakthrough paper fast-tracked for publication. Revolutionary findings confirmed. Actually, I said, pulling out my tablet, I wanted to discuss something about my research. We've been over this, Dad sighed. The funding requirements won't be an issue after tomorrow. I opened my email. When they announced the Nobel Prize in Medicine. The room fell silent. Marie's wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. What are you talking about? I turned my tablet to show them the email from Stockholm. The official Nobel Committee letterhead gleamed on the screen. That's impossible, Dad stammered. The nominations were completed 6 months ago, I finished. My quantum biology research redefining cellular regeneration caught their attention, along with every major research institution in the world. Mom's perfect hostess smile froze. Your lab work. Not just lab work. I opened the supporting documents. I've discovered how to manipulate quantum states in living cells. It's going to revolutionize medicine, aging research, and cellular biology. But you're working in a university lab, Marie protested. With basic equipment That's what you saw. I pulled up photos of my real laboratory. The public lab is just the surface. Underground, I've built one of the most advanced quantum biology facilities in the world. The party guests gathered around my tablet, watching as I scrolled through images of cutting-edge equipment and breakthrough results. Those cellular regeneration trials you're so proud of? I looked at Marie. My discovery makes them obsolete. Complete tissue regeneration at the quantum level. Dad's glass of scotch trembled slightly. The funding, how did you Private investors, I said. Who understood that real breakthroughs don't always come from prestigious institutions. The patents alone are valued at $3 billion. $3 billion. Marie's voice cracked. The pharmaceutical companies are already bidding. I pulled up the confidential offers. Every major healthcare corporation wants exclusive rights. But I'm keeping control of the research. But your work. It's so basic, Mom protested weakly. Basic. I laughed softly. Let me show you what basic looks like. I projected my research data onto the living room wall using my tablet. Complex quantum equations and cellular imaging filled the space. This, I pointed to a particular sequence, is how we manipulate quantum states in living tissue. Something your top researchers said was impossible, Marie. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Years of their dismissive comments about my modest research echoed in the quiet. Tomorrow morning, I continued, Nature is publishing my paper. Simultaneously, the Nobel Committee will announce this year's prize in medicine. And those pharmaceutical bids. I smiled. They go public. Why didn't you tell us? Dad asked, his voice small. Would you have understood? I turned to face them. 3 years ago I tried to explain my quantum biology theory. Marie called it science fiction. Mom suggested I focus on practical research. You all laughed at my waste of time in a basic university lab. My phone buzzed again. The Nobel Committee confirming tomorrow's press conference arrangements. The university's holding a press conference at 10 a.m., I said, gathering my things. After Stockholm's announcement. I suggest you watch it. Sarah, wait, Marie called out. Maybe we could collaborate. Collaborate. I turned back. Your entire research approach is outdated. While you were chasing grants and headlines, I was rewriting the fundamentals of cellular biology. Mom stepped forward, her social poise cracking. But darling, your career, your future, is exactly what I planned. I showed them one final document, the founding papers for my new research institute. The Chin Quantum Biology Institute. Funded by the patent revenues and staffed by scientists who understand that real breakthroughs don't come from following the crowd. As I reached the door, Dad called out, "We're your family." I paused. "Yes, you are. And tomorrow, you'll be watching like everyone else as your failed scientist daughter receives the Nobel Prize." The night air felt cool as I walked to my car. Tom waited inside with updated research data and tomorrow's presentation materials. "How did they take it?" he asked. I looked back at the house where my family stood frozen, their worlds upended by the daughter they'd underestimated. "They're about to learn," I said, opening my laptop to review the Nobel lecture draft, "that sometimes the smallest lab can change the world." The university auditorium buzzed with anticipation. News cameras lined the back wall, satellite trucks filled the parking lot, and every major scientific journal had sent representatives. In the front row, my family sat uncomfortably, their presence requested by the Nobel Committee for the historic announcement. "Dr. Chin." Tom approached with my presentation materials. "Stockholm is live in 5 minutes. And the pharmaceutical offers have topped 5 billion. I nodded, watching the live feed from Sweden on my tablet. The Nobel Committee members were taking their seats, preparing to announce what they called the most significant breakthrough in medical science this century. Marie shifted in her designer suit, clutching a copy of Nature that featured my research on the cover. The same journal that had rejected her last 3 papers. "I still don't understand," she whispered. "Your quantum manipulation method transcends everything you thought you knew about cellular biology," I finished. "That's why you didn't see it coming." The university president approached the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to begin. Please welcome Dr. Sarah Chin, whose groundbreaking work in quantum biology has The screens behind him lit up with the Nobel Committee's live feed. The Nobel Prize in Medicine for this year is awarded to Dr. Sarah Chin for her revolutionary discovery of quantum cellular manipulation, enabling unprecedented tissue regeneration and biological control at the quantum level. Camera flashes exploded as I walked to the podium. Mom's perfect makeup couldn't hide her shock. Dad's hands trembled on his armrests. 3 years ago, I proposed that cellular behavior could be controlled through quantum state manipulation. The scientific community called it impossible. My own sister, I glanced at Marie, suggested I focus on real research. The screens filled with my data, complex quantum equations and cellular imaging that made traditional research look primitive. "What you're seeing isn't just a new technique," I continued. "It's a fundamental reimagining of how life works at its most basic level. We can now control cellular function with quantum precision, enabling repairs and regeneration that were previously thought impossible." I pulled up video of our latest trials. Complete organ regeneration. Neural pathway restoration. Cellular aging reversed. All through quantum manipulation of living tissue. The audience gasped as the results played out. Marie's $1 million grant research looked like a high school science project in comparison. "The applications are limitless," I continued. "Every field of medicine will be transformed. Every disease we thought incurable becomes manageable. Every limitation we accepted becomes optional." "But the testing," Marie interrupted. "The clinical trials are already completed," I replied. "While you were publishing papers on conventional treatments, I was quietly conducting the most advanced biological research in history. I revealed our underground facilities' full scope, dozens of labs, hundreds of researchers, years of successful trials. The patents alone," I noted, are worth more than every grant your hospital has received in the past decade, Marie. But this isn't about money. It's about changing what's possible. Mom stood up shakily. Sarah, why didn't you tell us? We could have dash. Could have what? I asked quietly. Dismissed it again? Suggested more suitable research? Told me to follow Marie's safe, predictable path. The screens showed more breakthrough data. Discoveries that would rewrite medical textbooks and reshape human potential. The Chin Quantum Biology Institute opens next month, I announced. Funded by patent revenues and staffed by scientists who understand that real breakthroughs require breaking from convention. The morning sun streamed through the quantum-filtered windows of my new office at the Chin Institute. 3 months after the Nobel announcement, the scientific world was still reeling from the implications of my discovery. Every major medical journal had dedicated special issues to quantum biology, and our waiting list for research positions stretched years into the future. Dr. Chin. Tom entered with the morning briefings. The WHO delegation is here for the Global Health Initiative. And, your family's waiting in the conference room. I turned from the observation window overlooking our quantum labs. All of them. Your parents, Marie, and representatives from her hospital. They've reviewed the preliminary trial results. Of course they had. 3 months of watching traditional medicine become obsolete had been a harsh education. Send in my team first, I decided. Let them see what real research looks like. Dr. Zhang, my quantum physics director, led the procession of scientists, brilliant minds we'd recruited from around the world, many overlooked by prestigious institutions because their ideas were too unconventional. The neural regeneration trials have exceeded all projections, she reported, pulling up the latest data. Complete spinal cord restoration in 94% of cases. Marie's hospital has requested access to the protocols. Denied, I said firmly. They're not equipped for quantum-level work. And their understanding of the principles is inadequate. The doors opened. My family entered, looking distinctly uncomfortable in our ultra-modern facility. Marie's hospital credentials seemed almost quaint among our quantum researchers. Sarah, Dad began cautiously, these results, they're unprecedented. No, I corrected, they're what happens when you think beyond conventional limitations. I turned to the wall of screens displaying real-time quantum cellular manipulation. 3 months. That's how long it took to make traditional medicine obsolete. But our research Marie started. Is irrelevant, I interrupted, pulling up comparative data. Your best cellular regeneration trials show 15% success rates. We're achieving complete restoration at the quantum level. Your understanding of biology is like studying space with a magnifying glass. Mom stood, her social confidence shattered. Darling, surely we can collaborate. Collaborate. I laughed softly. You still don't understand. We're not just advancing medicine, we're redefining what life is. I revealed our latest breakthrough, quantum consciousness mapping. Impossible, Marie whispered. That word, I noted, is why you'll never work here. While you were defending old theories, we mapped the quantum structure of consciousness itself. Human awareness exists at the quantum level, manipulable, transferable, expandable. The screens filled with data that looked like science fiction. Consciousness transfer between organic substrates, quantum memory enhancement, direct neural interfaces with quantum computers. Your entire medical paradigm, I continued, is based on classical physics. We're operating at a level you can't even measure, let alone understand. Dad stepped forward. The Nobel Prize, we thought was just the beginning? I smiled. It was. The quantum biology revolution is reshaping every field, medicine, genetics, neuroscience, even our understanding of death itself. My phone buzzed. Another breakthrough in the consciousness lab. We'd successfully transferred complex memories between quantum substrates. The WHO is implementing our protocols globally, I announced. Every major research institution is restructuring around quantum biology. Except, I looked at Marie, those two invested in outdated methods to adapt. My position at the hospital she began, is becoming irrelevant, I finished. Your entire department does less in a year than one of our quantum labs achieves in a day. Mom sank into a chair. But your sister's reputation, her career, will be footnotes in medical history, I said quietly. Along with everyone else who dismissed quantum biology as impossible. I walked to the quantum observation window, watching researchers manipulate cellular structures at the quantum level. This institute isn't just advancing science, it's rendering the old ways obsolete. The daughter you called a failed scientist is rewriting the future of human existence. And us? Marie asked, her voice small. You can observe, I replied. From a distance. Like everyone else who lacked the vision to see beyond convention. The screens behind me filled with more breakthroughs. Aging reversed at the quantum level, consciousness expanded beyond biological limits, death itself becoming optional through quantum transfer. The future doesn't wait for approval, I said as they prepared to leave. It doesn't care about prestigious positions or traditional thinking. It belongs to those who dare to imagine the impossible. As they filed out, I turned back to the quantum labs where my teams were reshaping reality itself. Tom approached with updates on our latest consciousness trials. They still don't understand, do they? He asked. I watched my family retreat through the quantum-filtered corridors, their worldview shattered by the daughter they'd underestimated. No, I said, reviewing data that would soon make even today's breakthroughs seem primitive. They never will. They're still thinking in classical terms while we're quantum leaping into the future. The morning sun played through the quantum filters, casting strange shadows across the institute I'd built while they laughed at my basic research. The failed scientist hadn't just proved them wrong, she transcended their entire understanding of reality. And we were still just beginning to explore the quantum depths of existence itself. Mom's annual garden party was her crowning social achievement, 300 elite guests scattered across our family estate's manicured lawns, all carefully selected to showcase her status in Silicon Valley's social hierarchy. I adjusted my simple black dress, watching the catering staff hurry past with trays of champagne. Mom had suggested I help serve drinks, claiming it would teach me humility after quitting my stable job at her friend's investment firm. There you are. My sister Victoria appeared, resplendent in designer wear. Mom needs more champagne for the tech investors near the fountain. I'm actually here as a guest, Vic. She laughed, pressing a tray into my hands. Please. In that off-the-rack dress? Just help out and try not to embarrass us. I took the tray, suppressing a smile. If they only knew I owned the boutique winery that supplied their precious champagne. Ladies. Mom glided over, every inch the perfect hostess in Dior. Victoria, darling, the Prescotts are asking about your new position at Goldman Sachs. Of course they are, Victoria preened. Youngest VP in their history. Mom turned to me with a familiar look of disappointment. At least try to look professional while serving. And stay away from the tech investors. We don't need to hear about your little startup ideas. My little startup had just declined acquisition offers from 3 major tech giants, but I kept quiet. The time wasn't right. Yet. I moved through the crowd, serving drinks while catching snippets of conversation. Tech CEOs, venture capitalists, and social climbers all mixing under the California sun, none recognizing the woman refilling their glasses. Did you see the Bloomberg article about mystery tech? One investor asked another. Some female founder revolutionizing quantum computing. Nobody knows who she is. I smiled slightly. They'd know soon enough. Speaking of mysteries, Victoria's voice carried across the lawn. My sister thinks she's the next Steve Jobs. Quit her real job to code, in some tiny apartment. The group around her tittered. Mom joined in with practiced concern. We're hoping it's just a phase. She always was different. I checked my phone discreetly. My CEO had texted, Bloomberg piece goes live in 10 minutes. Sure you don't want to leave first? Not yet, I typed back. Getting good material for my memoir. Victoria cornered me by the bar. The Watkins Group needs refills. Try not to bore them with tech talk, they're actual successful people. I nodded, heading toward the group. The Watkins CEO was mid-speech about these young entrepreneurs who think they can change the world. My phone buzzed. The Bloomberg article was live. More champagne. I offered the group. At least someone knows their place. Victoria had followed me. The waitress role suits you, sis. More realistic than your tech dreams. Suddenly, phones started buzzing throughout the party. The CEO's eyes widened as he read his screen. By God. Mystery Tech's founder revealed. Victoria glanced at her phone, then froze. The headline filled screens across the garden. Mysterious tech founder worth $7.2 billion revealed. Silicon Valley's hidden quantum computing queen. And there was my photo, taken at last week's private investor meeting. Mom's champagne glass slipped from her fingers as she saw the screen. That's your waitress. I set down my tray. Party's over. The garden fell silent as recognition spread. Ithos stammered, You're her? The quantum computing breakthrough. The one your company tried to buy last week for $3 billion? I smiled. Yes. I declined, remember? Victoria's phone clattered to the ground. The article's details were still scrolling. Revolutionary quantum encryption. Youngest self-made female billionaire. Rejected multiple acquisition offers. But you live in that small apartment. Mom whispered. Actually, I straightened my off-the-rack dress, custom Chanel unlabeled. I own the building. And this estate's mortgage. The sound of helicopter blades cut through the silence. Right on schedule. That's my ride, I said, checking my watch. The NYSE opening bell waits for no one. We're going public tomorrow. As the helicopter descended onto the lawn, scattering rose petals and socialites alike, I turned to my stunned family. Thanks for the character-building experience. It'll make a great opening chapter. Victoria found her voice. Chapter of what? My memoir, I smiled, walking toward the helicopter. I'm thinking of calling it, The Waitress Worth Billions. The party dissolved into chaos behind me, guests scrambling to call their brokers, Mom having an existential crisis by the fountain, and Victoria staring at her Goldman Sachs business cards like they'd betrayed her. Sometimes the best revenge is served with champagne. The helicopter door opened, revealing my executive team. Time to show Silicon Valley what the waitress could really do. The garden party dissolved into barely controlled chaos as I walked toward the helicopter. Behind me, I could hear Mom's carefully cultivated social order crumbling. My God, the Watkinso was frantically dialing his phone. We turned down a partnership with her company last month. Victoria chased after me, stumbling in her Louboutins. Wait, you can't just. This has to be some kind of mistake. I paused, turning slowly. A mistake? Like when you told the Morgans I was playing pretend entrepreneur last week. More phones buzzed. The business alerts were cascading now. Mystery Tech IPO set to be largest of decade. Quantum computing breakthrough revolutionizes cybersecurity. Mitchell Industries valued at $15.4 billion p. Mom pushed through the crowd, her perfect hostess mask cracking. Darling, why didn't you tell us? We're family. Family. I raised an eyebrow. Like when you told me to stop embarrassing the family name with my computer hobby? The helicopter's blades whirred overhead as my CFO stepped out, carrying a tablet. Ms. Mitchell, we need your signature on the final IPO documents. Victoria's eyes widened at the respect in his tone. Gone was any trace of the waitress they'd mocked minutes ago. Of course, I took the tablet. How's the pre-market interest? Oversubscribed by 300%. Morgan Stanley's called 4 times in the last hour. A commotion near the fountain drew everyone's attention. The Prescotts, Mom's precious Goldman Sachs connections, were hurriedly approaching. Ms. Mitchell, Mr. Prescott called out, straightening his tie. About that proposal we rejected last quarter. The one you called amateur hour? I smiled. I believe you sent that rejection to my sister, actually, since she's your VP. Victoria blanched. She'd been the one to deliver that rejection, adding her own condescending note. More party guests were pressing forward now, business cards appearing like magic. The same people who'd handed me empty champagne glasses minutes ago were suddenly desperate to make connections. Mom tried again, her voice trembling. Sweetheart, let's discuss this inside. As a family. Actually, I signed the IPO documents with a flourish. We're having an emergency board meeting in an hour. Time zones, Tokyo Exchange opens soon. Board meeting. Victoria's voice cracked. You have a board? As if on cue, 3 more helicopters appeared on the horizon. My executive team had impeccable timing. That would be them now, I nodded. Former SEC chairman, 2 Nobel laureates, And that overrated quantum physicist you said I was wasting my time studying with last Christmas. The helicopters landed, sending Mom's carefully arranged decorations flying. Guests scattered as some of the most powerful people in tech stepped onto the lawn. The house papers you requested, Ms. Mitchell. My lawyer approached with another tablet. Ready for your signature. House papers. Mom grabbed Victoria's arm for support. What house papers? The estate's mortgage transfer, I explained. I bought it last week when the bank called your loan. Dad had always leveraged the house for business ventures. They had no idea I was the one who'd purchased their debt. Own our house? Victoria whispered. Properties, I corrected. The summer house in Aspen too. Don't worry, I'm not evicting you. Yet. The board members were gathering now, checking their watches. The IPO wait for no one, not even family drama. Ms. Mitchell, my PR director called. Bloomberg wants a statement about the reveal. I smiled at my family. Tell them the truth. Sometimes the best tech innovations come from unexpected places. Even from the waitress at a garden party. This is insane, Victoria broke in. You can't just. I'm the successful one. I have the corporate career, the connections. And I have an IPO to launch, I finished. Speaking of which, Mom, you might want to turn on CNBC. They're about to announce the pre-market valuation. As if by magic, the garden's outdoor screens flickered to life. The CNBC anchor's voice filled the air. Breaking news. Mystery Tech now revealed as Mitchell Industries, set to IPO at a staggering $18.2 billion valuation. Sources say founder Sophia Mitchell, previously unknown in tech circles, is poised to become one of the youngest self-made billionaires in history. Mom sank into a nearby chair. 18 billion. Give or take a few $100 million, I shrugged. The quantum computing patents alone are worth billions. Victoria's Goldman Sachs badge suddenly looked very small against the backdrop of helicopters and power players. The board meeting, I checked my watch. We should go. Mom, thanks for the party. It was illuminating. Wait. Mom called out desperately. What do we tell people? I paused at the helicopter door. Tell them your daughter finally got a real job. Just not the one you expected. As we lifted off, I could see the party completely unraveling below. Mom's perfect social order replaced by a scramble of guests desperately making calls about the IPO. Sometimes the best success stories start with being underestimated. Next stop, my CFO smiled, Wall Street. Victoria's Goldman Sachs office would have a perfect view of the NYSE tomorrow when my company's symbol lit up the board. I hoped she enjoyed the show. The next morning I stood on the NYSE podium, surrounded by cameras and the deafening roar of traders. The opening bell waited for my signal, but first I glanced at the private viewing gallery. Mom, Dad, and Victoria sat there, still shell-shocked from yesterday's revelation. They'd received a midnight invitation hand-delivered by my corporate security team to witness the IPO launch. After all, family should be present for historic moments. 30 seconds to bell, my CFO whispered. Victoria clutched her Goldman Sachs portfolio, now filled with desperate client requests to get in on the IPO. The same clients who'd dismissed my amateur proposals months ago. 10 seconds. Mom had changed outfits 3 times this morning, trying to look appropriate for the financial press. Her social circle was exploding with the news that her wayward daughter was about to become one of the world's wealthiest women. 5 seconds. I caught Victoria's eye and smiled slightly. Her latest Goldman Sachs achievement, the one Mom had bragged about all summer, would barely make the bank's internal newsletter. Meanwhile, my face was on every financial channel globally. The bell rang. The trading floor erupted as Mitchell Industries, ticker MEH, began its first public trades. The opening price flashed across the massive screens, $250 per share, already up 40% from the IPO price. Mitchell Industries opens at $22.4 billion market cap. CNBC's anchor announced. The largest tech IPO of the decade. My phone buzzed, texts flooding in from last night's party guests, desperately trying to connect. The same people who'd handed me empty glasses were now begging for meetings. Victoria's phone rang. From her expression, it was Goldman Sachs management, probably asking about her connection to the mysterious Mitchell Industries founder. Ms. Mitchell, a reporter called out. How does it feel to become the youngest female tech founder on the NYSE? I stepped to the microphone. It feels like validation. Success isn't about where you start. Sometimes it's about letting people underestimate you while you build something revolutionary. Mom flinched. She recognized her own dismissive words thrown back at her. Your family must be proud, another reporter pressed. Were they early investors? Actually, I smiled. They're learning about the company's success along with everyone else. Sometimes the best surprises come from the people you least expect. Even from the woman serving drinks at your party. The trading floor laughed. The story of yesterday's garden party revelation had already become Wall Street legend. As the morning progressed, the stock kept climbing. Victoria watched helplessly as my net worth surpassed her entire bank's management team combined. During a brief break, Mom approached cautiously. Darling, about all those things we said. The time for apologies was before the Bloomberg article. I cut in smoothly. Now it's time for business. Speaking of which. I nodded to my lawyer who handed them each a folder. What's this? Dad asked, opening his. Your new reality, I explained. The estate's maintenance costs, staff contracts, and social club memberships are now under Mitchell Industries' corporate structure. You'll need to approve expenses through our family office. Victoria's hands shook as she read her document. This says my apartment is in a building I acquired last year, I finished. Don't worry, your successful Goldman salary can still cover the rent. I'm not raising it, yet. But we're family, Mom protested weakly. Exactly, I agreed. And family should be honest with each other. Like how you honestly told everyone I was wasting my potential on computers. The stock ticker caught my eye. MTH up 70% now. The waste of potential was worth over $25 billion. Ms. Mitchell, my assistant interrupted. The quantum computing presentation is ready. I gathered my things, watching Mom try to process that her daughter now employed more PhDs than her entire social circle combined. One last thing, I paused. Next month's garden party? Mom looked up hopefully. Yes. Will be hosted by Mitchell Industries. Professional staff only, no family members serving drinks this time. As I walked away, I heard Victoria whisper, what just happened? What happened was simple. The daughter they'd underestimated had just become the daughter they answered to. My phone buzzed again, the president of MIT calling. Probably about that $100 million research grant I'd mentioned. Or maybe the new quantum computing center that would bear my name. Send my jet for the family this evening, I instructed my assistant. They should attend tonight's CEO dinner. It's time they saw what their little girl with computer dreams actually built. The trading floor roared again as MTH hit another record high. On the screens above, headlines flashed. Mitchell Industries revolutionizes quantum computing. Tech's newest billionaire. From serving drinks to serving innovation. Garden party to end with Silicon Valley's greatest startup story. Sometimes success is the best revenge. But making your family watch that success from the front row? That's priceless. Time for the next meeting, I smiled, straightening my custom suit. We have a quantum computing revolution to launch. Behind me, Mom and Victoria stared at the stock ticker, finally understanding. The daughter they'd dismissed hadn't just succeeded, she'd redefined success itself. And this was just the beginning.